think we definitely need to spend some time with this soon. But let's continue. So you guys ready? I've already plugged it in, so we can now connect it to the device. And now we have a little touchscreen on our aquarium. Welcome to a new video, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Super excited today because we're doing another unboxing. Now I think on the past 1 or 2 years I've unboxed quite a few CO2 systems on my channel. But I think today we have like the Lamborghini or the Ferrari of CO2 systems. I couldn't help myself. I had to take a look inside. I didn't touch anything yet, but I was really impressed by what I saw, so I can't wait to show you guys. So we're gonna unbox it and set it up and install it on one of my aquariums and yeah, see what it's all about. So in this box we have a high-end CO2 system from a company called ECINU. I think that's how you say it. I'm not even sure, to be honest. So we received 2 boxes, but I think they're both the same. So the CO2 system is called EG401. And I think both boxes are the same CO2 system, but this one also includes a regulator. So this is like the full system. So this is what we're going to be focusing on today. So we'll move this one to the side. And then we'll start opening this one. Alright, so without further ado, let's get straight into it. So this is the EG401R CO2 control unit by ECINU Aquarium Systems from Korea. So let's open it up. Ta-da! First thing we see is a little installation guide. So you can kind of already see what this looks like. So we have a regulator, and to that we have like a control system connected with the display and everything. So that already looks very fancy. So let's put that to the side. Next up we have like the user manual. I think we definitely need to spend some time with this soon. But let's continue. So you guys ready? Here we go. I mean, you guys, look at the packaging. I was so like blown away by this. So we have something that looks like carbon, and then with some red accents, and I love the color combination of black and red. So this looks very, very fancy. So this is the control unit, and then here we have something that looks like a pen. I'm not sure what that is. And then if we lift this up, there's even more. So I'll put that here. And this is where it gets really interesting. I mean, this is already very interesting, but yeah. So here we have a CO2 regulator. This is the knob for the CO2 regulator. This is something that looks like a pH probe. And here we have 2 bottles. This is the pH buffer solution. So this is pH 4, and then this is probably pH pH 7. So we're gonna have to calibrate the pH probe. This is the power supply. It's a shame that they made this one in white. I would have liked to have this one in black as well, but yeah, that's personal, of course. And then what do we have here? Oh, it's like a little metal plate. I guess if you want to mount the CO2 control unit to the inside of your cabinet or something. So I don't think we can take this out. No, this one is stuck in place. Let's see if we can put this back. Like so. Let's see if we can take this thing out. It's very firm. Here we go. Whoa. That's a big unit, man. Okay, so this is the CO2 control device. So to be honest with you, I've never seen anything like this. It's quite heavy as well. But let's take a quick look around the entire thing. So over here we have something that looks like a bubble counter. On the side here, this is probably where it connects to the regulator. So I'm curious if you can use this with any type of regulator, or you need to use, or you can only use it with the ECINU regulator. Curious to find that out. On front, of course, we have the screen, and I think the screen you can remove it. So I think it's magnetic. Yes. So this little screen is magnetic, and you can remove it, and then you can basically place it anywhere you want, I guess. Let's move over to this side. This thing here says pH. I have no idea what this is. This is the connection for the power, and then we have the USB. So with the USB, I think you connect this to the screen that you can then remove. On top we have two buttons for pH 4 and pH 7, so I think that's where we need to use this pen. And yeah, I think that's it. So I think let's move this to the side. Let's take out this pen. Okay, we'll find out later where we need to use this pen for. And then let's go back here. So let's take all this out. So let's first start with the regulator. Okay, I almost got it. It was very hard to take this thing out, but this is the regulator. And this looks very different from a normal CO2 regulator. So I definitely think that, yeah, other regulators are not compatible with the CO2 control unit. And let's move this to the side. Then we have the knob for the CO2 regulator. Of course, this one is also hard to take out. This one's okay. So this probably just goes in here. Okay, so that's our full CO2 regulator. Definitely looks very interesting. Also very heavy, but looks really solid. First thing that I noticed is that there's no needle valve, of course, here. So that, of course, we probably don't need a needle valve because we have the CO2 control unit. Really interesting. I'm just gonna move this to here. And then we take out the pH probe. So I like that the pH probe has a very long cable, because that's what you need, because this pH probe has to go either in your aquarium or in your sump, or like I have with the big shallow, it has to go in the CO2 reactor. So you need a long cable for that, so that's good. The pH probe has a very interesting connection. So I guess this goes here then. I think this is like a safety. I think we need to remove this or something. Let's not touch it. Let's check it out later in the manual. What do we have here? So the USB cable is for the screen. So I think you only need this if you want to remove the screen and place it somewhere else. So then you need to plug it in here, like so. Okay, so these are basically all the components. So we have the actual CO2 control unit device, the CO2 regulator, the pH probe, a pen to calibrate the pH probe, a USB cable for the removable screen, power supply, pH solutions, and a manual. So next step is to kind of read through the manual, and then we can start setting this thing up. So one thing that was missing in this box were some Teflon rings. That's what you usually put between the regulator and the CO2 bottle, just to make sure it's completely airtight. They were supposed to be in the box with all the products, but there was a mistake in the manufacturing process. So they sent me this bag of extra Teflon rings, and of course I lost this bag. So I literally just spent like an hour and a half searching for this. And of course they were exactly where they're supposed to be, but I just completely overlooked it. And of course my significant other half has better eyes than me, so she found it. We're gonna now set up the whole CO2 system. I got a CO2 bottle here. This is a 2 kilogram cylinder. So first thing we need to do, we need to attach our regulator. So I already have the Teflon ring inside here, so we can screw this onto the cylinder. Let me just get my wrench. Okay, so that's the regulator attached. So next we will go with the device. Okay, I got the CO2 control device attached. It was a bit of a struggle because the bolt from the cylinder to the regulator is size 27 wrench. And this one is slightly bigger. I think it's 28. And I didn't have a size 28, but I did have this tool. So we got there in the end. One thing that scares me a little bit is that this CO2 device is quite heavy. So it kind of, like, it's not tipping over, but it's not super stable. So I'm just going to put it on the ground for now. So I'm just moving everything to this side so we can test the CO2 system on the big shallow. So let's try that. I've already plugged it in, so we can now connect it to the device. This is supposed to be the power button. So if you hold this for 3 seconds, here we go. So, oh, Okay, so let's fill the bubble counter with water. Apparently that's why it's beeping. Okay, let's try this again. Oh, that doesn't look good. Okay, so the screen was acting up a little bit, but now that I've switched it on and off, it's fine. So I'm kind of starting to understand it already. Bring that brightness down a little bit. Here we go. So we have manual mode, we have pH mode, and then we have 2 timers. So I've just been playing a little bit with the manual mode. So on this screen, yeah, you can just manually set the amount of bubbles per second you want. So here on the top of the screen, we see the pressure. So right now it's 50 psi, which is a bit too high. So that's why it's bluish. We kind of want the pressure to be green. So once we start opening the CO2, the pressure will start to reduce, of course. So this is manual mode. And now if you press on CO2, we can basically manually set how many bubbles per second you want. Okay, let's do 4 bubbles per second. So if you press again, somewhere on the screen. Here we go. So now it opens the valve basically. And then soon the bubbles should start coming out. So I'm not sure why it's making this noise. I don't hope that that's not normal, because I'm definitely not enjoying the noise. Okay, so that's manual mode, so now it just starts bubbling away. Pressure is slowly reducing as well, 49.3, 49.2. Okay, so let's switch that off again. See, so now it's green, so now pressure is below 50 psi, so I guess that's fine. But I don't want any CO2 yet. So 0 bubbles per second. And then it's slowly going to stop. So now we need to figure out the pH so we can automate the CO2 system. Okay, so now a few days later, I stopped filming because I was actually really struggling to set up the device properly. So on the day of the unboxing, I thought, you know what, I'm just quickly going to do this. I'm going to unbox it, set it up, show you guys all the features, and it's going to be a nice video. But things didn't really go to plan. So I put the camera away so I could focus better on what I was doing and to set it up properly. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to set it up and show you guys afterwards, you know what, how it works. But I was really struggling, and I reached out to ECI&U for some help as well. They've been very helpful, but I was still struggling. So as you can see right now, I'm not even using this one anymore. I kind of just gave up. But if you remember from the beginning of the video, we had 2 boxes. So I thought, I was struggling so much, I thought maybe this device is just faulty or something. So I thought, let's just open the second box and try that one. So the device that is in this box is actually a little bit different from this one. So this is the device that we unboxed at the beginning, and it has this special attachment for the regulator. So when I saw that first, I was like, okay, that's a little bit weird. So the device is only compatible with the regulator from ECI&U. But of course they would never do that. So this device that was in this box is actually compatible with all regulators. Let me show you. Okay, so this is the current setup, and I know it looks a little bit messy, just please bear with me. So we have a 2 kilogram cylinder, but I've now hooked up the CO2 art regulator. So this is a dual stage regulator, has all the bells and whistles, but now the airline is going directly to the computer, the CO2 control device from ECI&U. So on this computer, you see the connection is different. So this is where we used to have the connection for the regulator, and now we just have a regular gas connection. So the problem that I have with this device is that it was actually giving CO2 even when I didn't want it to give CO2. And then the only way to stop the CO2 supply is by closing the valve here, because this device doesn't have a needle valve, and the needle valve is built into the device itself. So if I wanted to stop the CO2, I had to either close this valve or just close the CO2 cylinder. And that was really, really frustrating me. And because I'm still figuring this device out, sometimes it's, I'm putting in some settings and it starts producing CO2 even when I don't want it. So now with this setup, I can just, close the needle valve from the CO2 art regulator or just remove the electricity, and then we're all good. I didn't just waste a whole bunch of CO2. So this device and this setup is kind of working quite well for me right now. So now we can finally kind of take a look at all the different settings, and I can show you a bit more of this device. Starting with the removable screen, that's actually a feature that I really like. And you remember this metal plate that we unboxed in the beginning? I finally have a good feature for it. So we first actually have to turn the device off. So just by holding the button, We can switch it off. Then we can remove the screen. And then we can attach it again with our USB cable. Let me plug the USB in here as well. And now we basically have like a small portable screen that we can control the CO2 with. And because this small screen is magnetic, we can use this metal plate and basically place it anywhere in the cabinet or outside the cabinet, wherever you like. And what I kind of like to do is actually place it on the glass. And we can just put this thing right here. And now we have a little touchscreen on our aquarium. Normally I would never suggest you do this, so I'll probably just put it inside the cabinet. But for the purpose of this video, I think it's quite cool. So let's just quickly go over these settings. So we'll just go back to the home screen. So this is basically the home screen. Then we have manual, we have pH, and we have timers. Okay, so let's start with manual. I'm guessing the manual mode is something that you will not use very often. Just like right now, you know, when you're kind of testing it, and when you're using the device for the first time, and you kind of want to see what it's all about. So we click on manual, and then we see the pH, we see the date and the time, and we see the current CO2 set. So it's not bubbles per second, it's cc per minute. I still don't really quite understand what it is, but it looks quite similar to bubbles per second. And we see the current pressure is 26.2 psi. And then here in the center, we can kind of adjust all the settings. So if you just click on that, right now we're in manual mode. So the only thing we can do is we can just set how much CO2 we want. So we want, right now it's set to 2 cc per minute. So we can, of course, we can increase that, we can decrease that. But yeah, we'll just keep it on 2. So that is basically the manual mode. It's nothing more, nothing less. Very simple. And then next up we have the pH mode. So this is a little bit more complicated. So if we click on it, we see a whole lot of things. So pH mode is of course connected to the pH sensor. I've just quickly inserted it into the aquarium right here. It's already calibrated. It's very simple. You just first drop the sensor in the pH 4 solution. Then with that screwdriver, you kind of just twist it until it's calibrated. Then next up, you drop it into the pH 7 solution and you do the exact same thing. And then the pH sensor is calibrated. And then on the screen, we see the current pH, which is 6.72. We see the pH set, which is 6.8. So I've set the pH to 6.8. That's the level that I want. And then we have the additional reductions, not really important. And the minimum CO2 is also not really important. The active time is important. So the CO2 is only on between 8 AM and 7 PM. And then here we can change all those settings again. So I've set the pH to 6.8, 2 cc per minute. The additional reduction is 0.1, minimum CO2 is 0. So I think most people will know how a pH controlled CO2 system works. But kind of just a quick explanation. So you see here the active time is 8 AM till 7 PM. So at 7 PM the CO2 will switch off completely. And then what happens is the CO2 will disappear from the aquarium and the pH will start rising. In my case it will usually rise at night until 7.8 or so. In the morning, CO2 will turn on again, and then the pH start dropping again. So I wanted to drop all the way to 6.8 and then stop. So with these kind of systems, we can basically keep a very stable pH level. We can also save a lot of CO2 because the CO2 system will switch off multiple times during the day when it has reached pH 6.8. So it's very convenient, keeps a very stable CO2 level, and in return, we should have very little algae issues. And then lastly, we have the timer function. So this is very similar to your analog timer or your smart socket, but this just takes one step further. So if we click on it, we again see the pH and then we see all the 2 PM, 3 PM, 4 PM. If we just click on the settings again, we see the whole timetable for the entire day. So you will set this according to your light schedule. So for example, in the shallow, the light comes on at 12 PM. So I want the CO2 to start at 10 AM. Now I want exactly 5 bubbles per second for 5 cc per minute. But you need to do it for every hour, which is of course a little bit more work, but it also gives you more options. So for example, if we want the pH to drop quite quickly from 10 AM till 12 PM, we can do that. So we can give a lot of CO2 between 10 and 11. And then after the lights come on, we can keep it a bit more stable, so we can give less CO2 during the entire day. that's just something, something that you can do with this timer function. Now, one thing that I do not like about this system is the fact that it's making noise. So if it's up and running and it's at the desired pressure, the desired bubbles per second, it'll be absolutely quiet. But once you start making some changes to the pressure or some changes to the bubbles per second, it will start making noise. Let me show you. Okay, so right now we're in manual mode and the CO2 is currently set at 1.5 ccm. So let's try to increase that. So we'll increase it to 5.5 and then open the door. So now it starts making noise. So I think that in this device there's basically like a small motor that's then opening up, so it starts making some noise. I mean, this motor is not quiet. So I'll make this noise for a little bit until it's at the desired 5.5 level, and then it will stop. I don't know, this can take easily up to a minute or so. So that's kind of where I'm at with the CO2 control device from ECINU. Now before we wrap up this video, let's quickly go over the things that I do not like and the things that I do like about this product. So starting with the positive, what I really like about this product is just how well it's made. I mean, it definitely feels like a luxury product. They use very high quality materials. Everything feels very solid. This mini computer, it is easy to work with. I mean, the touchscreen is working really well. The menu is easy to navigate through. And it's easy to change the settings. It's just a bit difficult to kind of figure everything out properly and to figure out how the motor inside works according to those settings. So that's just something I need to become a bit more acquainted with. And what I do not like about this device is in the setup that we had in the beginning of the video, so the regulator connected to the bottle, the device connected to the regulator, this all together is very heavy. So it made the CO2 cylinder very unstable. I think that's very dangerous. So that's what I do not like about this device. And what I also do not like about this device is the fact that it's making noise, like I just showed you. Maybe I have just high expectations, but I do not want a CO2 system to make any noise. So that is the first look at this new CO2 control device from ECINU. Definitely a very interesting device, definitely kept me busy for a few days. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Would you buy it? Would you skip it? Curious to know your thoughts. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done this yet. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.